The Florida sun beat down on the manicured lawns, birds chirped, golf carts hummed. It was a scene of familiar tranquility for former President Donald Trump. He was a man who found solace on the golf course, a world away from the political fray. But on this day, a shadow lurked at the edge of this idyllic picture. Ryan Wesley Routh, a 58-year-old contractor from North Carolina, blended into the periphery. He carried himself with an unsettling stillness. In his possession, concealed from view, was an SKS-style rifle, a tool of war in a sanctuary of leisure. Routh had been there for hours, consumed by a dangerous plan. He was waiting for Trump. Unbeknownst to Routh, his every move was being tracked. The Secret Service, ever vigilant, had been monitoring his activities for weeks. They knew of his erratic behavior, his online rants, and his disturbing fascination with violence. They were ready to act. As Routh made his move, approaching the area where Trump was golfing, the Secret Service sprang into action. The air crackled with tension. Agents swarmed Routh, disarming him swiftly and decisively. Trump, whisked away to safety, remained oblivious to the danger that had come so close. The silence of the golf course was shattered, replaced by the harsh reality of a threat neutralized, but not forgotten. Ryan Wesley Routh was a man haunted by his own demons. Born and raised in the rural South, he lived a life marked by instability and violence. Neighbors knew him as a volatile character, prone to fits of rage and paranoia. His past was littered with run-ins with the law, a testament to his troubled state of mind. In 2002, Routh barricaded himself in his home, armed with a machine gun. The standoff with police lasted for hours, a terrifying glimpse into the depths of his mental instability. He spoke of conspiracies, of enemies both real and imagined. It was a harbinger of the darkness that would eventually consume him. Routh's fascination with violence extended beyond his own personal demons. He was drawn to global conflicts, particularly the ongoing war in Ukraine. He saw himself as a warrior for justice, a righteous crusader in a world gone mad. He yearned to fight, to make a difference, but his ambitions were clouded by delusion. His attempts to join the Ukrainian International Legion, a foreign volunteer unit, were met with swift rejection. Deemed too old and lacking in military experience, Routh was deemed a liability rather than an asset. His dreams of battlefield glory dashed. He retreated further into his own twisted reality. The war in Ukraine had become an obsession for Routh. He spent hours online consuming news and propaganda, his mind awash in images of destruction and heroism. He saw himself as a participant in this distant conflict, a soldier fighting for freedom against tyranny. Routh's online persona was a bizarre mix of grandiosity and incoherence. He posted rambling diatribes about Ukrainian bravery, interspersed with threats against those he perceived as enemies. He claimed to have inside knowledge of the conflict, to be in contact with high-ranking Ukrainian officials. These claims, however, were nothing more than the delusions of a troubled mind. In reality, Routh's connection to Ukraine was tenuous at best. He had never been to the country, nor had he any personal ties to its people. His knowledge of the conflict was gleaned from the internet, a dangerous echo chamber that amplified his own biases and paranoia. His arrest for the attempted assassination of Trump cast a dark shadow over Ukraine's struggle for freedom. It provided ammunition to those who sought to portray the country as a hotbed of extremism, a breeding ground for violence. Ukraine, already grappling with the existential threat of Russian aggression, now faced the added burden of distancing itself from this troubled American and his misguided actions. Section 4. Guardians in the Shadows, the Secret Service. The Secret Service, tasked with the daunting responsibility of protecting the President of the United States, operates in a world of constant vigilance. They are the invisible guardians, ever watchful for threats both credible and imagined. In the case of Ryan Wesley Routh, their vigilance proved paramount. From the moment Routh's online activities raised red flags, the Secret Service sprang into action. They monitored his every move, tracking his travel, his communications, and his online activity. They built a detailed profile of a troubled individual, piecing together the fragments of a shattered mind. The Secret Service knew that Routh posed a serious threat. His history of violence, coupled with his online rants and his fascination with the war in Ukraine, painted a disturbing picture. They were not willing to take any chances. When Routh arrived in Florida, the Secret Service was ready. They tracked his every move, waiting for the opportune moment to neutralize the threat. As he approached Trump on the golf course, they moved with precision and speed, disarming him before he could carry out his deadly plan. Section 5. A World on Edge: International Reactions. The attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump sent shockwaves across the globe. News outlets around the world carried the story, highlighting the fragility of peace and the ever-present threat of violence. International reactions were swift and varied, reflecting the complex geopolitical landscape. In Ukraine, the government was quick to condemn the attack and distance itself from Wesley Routh. They emphasized that he had no official ties to the country and that his actions were those of a lone wolf. However, the incident threatened to undermine Ukraine's international standing, particularly among its Western allies. Russia, eager to exploit any opportunity to sow discord, seized upon the incident as proof of Ukraine's supposed instability. Russian state media amplified the story, portraying Routh as a symptom of a country awash in extremism. The Kremlin sought to use the incident to weaken international support for Ukraine and justify its own aggression. Section 6. The Road Ahead: Uncertainty and the Election. The attempted assassination of Donald Trump cast a long shadow over the upcoming US presidential election. It served as a stark reminder of the deep divisions within American society and the very real threat of political violence. The incident also had the potential to impact US foreign policy, particularly its relationship with Ukraine. The incident fueled concerns among Ukrainians that a potential second Trump presidency would weaken US support for their country. Trump's past rhetoric, which often praised Russian President Vladimir Putin and questioned US commitments to NATO, had already sown seeds of doubt in Kiev. The attempted assassination only served to heighten these anxieties. The road ahead was uncertain, both for the United States and for Ukraine. The attempted assassination of a former president was a watershed moment, a stark reminder of the fragility of democracy and the ever-present threat of extremism. As the US election drew closer, the world watched with bated breath, uncertain of what the future held.